My son's beloved teacher was caught with him in a bush, and when I started taking action against her, she weaponized CPS against me. So I leaked her hidden camera roll and watched her tenure shatter, pulling the most devastating revenge possible. I was at the store when I realized I was a few minutes late to pick up my son from his school trip, but by the time I got there, his teachers told me someone else had already collected him, and that someone was the ambulance. My heart twisted, and his teacher's face looked ghost white too. A million questions started pouring out of my mouth. In response, she didn't say anything, just put her hand on my shoulder. No one else was around, and she lowered her voice until it was barely a whisper. "Take your son out of this school while you still can." And before I could say anything else, she brought over the main teacher to tell me what hospital my son was at. It was a 10-minute drive, but I made it in 5. And when I got there, Mikey was being wheeled to the ICU. His eyes were closed, and I could barely see the rest of his tiny self through the flood of nurses. That's when a police officer came up to me and brought me into the nearby police station. Talk about a wild goose chase. He asked me if I ever watched Corn on my phone. I furrowed my eyebrows, and once the confusion wore off, a rage boiled my blood. It felt like some sort of sick joke. But then Dave, the officer, took a deep breath. "Sir, please answer the question," he said, keeping his face straight and his voice assertive. I shook my head. How the F is this? But I was interrupted, not by him talking over me, but by the sight of tears in his eyes. "I've been in this job for 25 years, and still any case involving youngins still makes me cry," he said between sobs. That's when I knew that he took his job seriously, and something very wrong had happened. Well, I didn't want to stop him from oversharing more details than he probably should, so I stayed completely silent. "Your son was found in a bush with one of the teachers," a passerby noticed. "What the F were they doing?" I asked. Dave pursed his lips, realizing that he had shared more of the case than he was allowed. So I threw my phone down on the table in front of us and pointed at my lock screen. "This is my little boy. I promised myself a long time ago that I'd do anything to keep him safe. You can tell me anything." Dave glanced at the picture frame on the table of his own kids and nodded. "A passerby called and said your son was jerking it in the bush with Miss Waters, but Miss Waters claimed your son has just been watching too much Corn." I felt the color drain from my face. Suddenly, everything made sense. Up until this point, my son was coming home every day raving about a new crush, about how she was buying things for him, how smart and mature she was. I never knew that crush was a grown adult, but it still didn't explain why my son was in the hospital. And that's when Dave kept going. Apparently when they got caught, my son hit himself over the head with a rock. I quickly put the pieces together. You see, my son is the type of person to watch you get caught by the police and take the blame for it. And that's exactly what happened here. He must have seen it as an act of love. Suddenly the room was spinning, and I buried my head in my hands. I thought back to what that assistant teacher told me. Dave promised that he and his team would do everything they could. I knew by the look in his eyes that he meant what he said. The next few hours were hell. I spent the entire night in the waiting room, wondering if my son had just sacrificed his life for a kitty fiddler or not. And I had to keep my promise to Officer Dave, so even though I texted into the parents' WhatsApp group chat, I kept it super vague, just gave the details most people already knew. But still, my phone was blowing up with texts from the other moms and dads. You see, my son was attending an all-boys school, and all the texts were about creepy things they had seen Miss Waters get away with. One dad told me that his son's grades were getting bumped up in exchange for a daily hug when no one was looking. Another mom told me that one day when her child still hadn't walked home from school, she went to pick him up, and in the classroom,